this project, CEJ was working with two institutions, which is CCSI and IIED. And so this morning we'll be reviewing two documents that were developed as a result of, number one, the Environmental Protection Dialogue, which focused on identifying strong actions for environmental sustainability. And under that theme, we identified the need to strengthen the Environmental Protection Fund. And from that meeting, the EPD, which is the Environmental Protection Dialogue, which was held last year in October, we realized that in order to begin the works of strengthening the EPF, the Environmental Protection Fund, we needed to carry out a desk research and to some extent develop a subsequent policy brief just to set base for these works to progress. And before we even knew it, government had equally shared the new National Mineral Resource Development Policy of 2022. And in that policy, government also recognized the need to strengthen the administration of the Environmental Protection Fund. And so we are so happy that the development of this research paper and the subsequent policy brief has come at a point when we need to abridge these works to combine our efforts in identifying ways in which we can protect our environment and at the same time carry out sustainable economic investments in Zambia. And for that reason, ladies and gentlemen, joining us this morning is a representative from the Center for Environment Justice board, Mr. Boniface Mumba, who's coming in to represent the board chairperson, Mr. Vincent Ziba. He could not be with us this morning. He's assigned with other duties, and therefore we are glad that the board couldn't just let us be, but sent us someone who could give us remarks for why this work is important. And allow me, ladies and gentlemen, now to welcome to this podium, Mr. Boniface Mumba.
On behalf of the Center for Environment Justice Board, I convey my heartfelt gratitude for being accorded the platform to officiate at this meeting organized by Center for Environment Justice. Allow me to extend my warm welcome to each and every one of you as we gather here today for this crucial validation meeting focused on reviewing the development research paper and subsequent policy brief aimed at reviewing the existing gaps in the management and administration of the Environmental Protection Fund, which is also known as EPF. It is an honor to have such esteemed individuals present, that is you that are present here, all of whom share a deep commitment to environment conservation and sustainable practices. Distinguished guests, I have been informed that Center for Environment Justice has been able to organize this validation meeting with the support of the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment and the International Institute for Environment and Development under the project Advancing Land-Based Investment Governance, AAaimed, to focus and reflect on this development research paper and subsequent policy brief, which are follow-up action on the third Environmental Protection Dialogue, EPD, convened in October 2022 here at Mlungushi Conference Center, KK.
From 36.2 million, the environmental liability, on the other hand, from 31st December in 2021 was estimated by the Ministry of Mines and Mineral Development at $58.1 million. Now look at the variance. So what that means is that government stands the risk of ensuring that rehabilitation will be on government's shoulder, and this is what we're trying to avoid, because what that will do is that it will strain the coffers of government and the ability of government to respond to other economic development issues. At least that's what the law says. It protects government from having the responsibility of taking up the obligation of doing that. So if the fund is available, that is assurance that even if these mining areas are left like that, because of that fund, government can pounce on that fund and rehabilitate those areas. But so far, if that variance is there, there's a huge risk, and the question that is coming is, where are these funds going to come from? What CEJ is just trying to say is that together with other stakeholders, we shall continue to complement government's efforts in developing well-informed policies in the mining sector, which shall contribute to facilitating the attainment of a socially and internationally acceptable balance between mining, health, and safety of the and environmental protection. What CEJ therefore is saying is that our mandate as an institution is to remember to disclose accurate information to the public, and also work hand in hand with government to ensure that certain issues that have been found can be leveraged through the support of other stakeholders, just like what we are doing right now. And on the current legal frameworks, the gap was that since the regulations were developed as far as 1998 and the other one in 1997, there has not been so much reviews done. And if so, they were done. Consultation from stakeholders who are involved in the extractive sector were not involved. So that was another issue that was brought up. And the recommendation there was that there is need for us to review the Mines and Minerals Regulation on environment, which is the 1997. Mining is important, but environmental sustainability is equally important. So the issue of reviewing the regulations, it is so that certain issues can be included, including the issues of punitive measures for defaulters, and also elaborating on the EPF committee, and also including the issue of the EPF investment policy to be well elaborated in these guidelines.
There are two different environmental audits. The environmental audits that will audit the environmental management plan are similar to what ZEMA does.
Okay.
It has got no costing in terms of the environmental ability. But the environmental audits that are required under the EPF has to do with the environmental management plan as well as the costing part of the environmental ability. And for any consultant to do that job has to be accredited by Mine Safety Department. You can't just wake up and want to do the audit, because there are costing methodology that has been approved by Mine Safety Department that will give a cost-effective figures for all mining industry. If you picked that document, quantify the environmental ability for Chibanga, should be same. If a consultant went there, different consultant went there and did, there should be minimal discrepancies. So you can't just use your own figures to quantify the environmental ability. So you should have been guided by what MSD provide for. So we do that. Do we coordinate with ZEMA? Yes, I would say in a nutshell we coordinate, because the mines are required to do biannual reports, which they submit both to us, as required by the Mines and Minerals Environmental Regulation, which is part of also ZEMA. So they go to ZEMA, they go to us, we also do our own validation. So the ministry has got the capacity to audit in terms of quantification of the environmental ability. That's why we validate the report. We do the review of the reports and go on site and validate that what is in the report is what is reflective in on site. And if we find that there are a lot of things that have been missed, Mine Safety Department will include all those. You find the consultant said it's $50 million. We say no, it's $51 million. And we'll state all the components and everything that is missing. But if we see that there is too much gap in terms of what has been missed on site, we reject that report and we require them to redo the resubmission. So where we can adjust, we do the adjustment. But where we see that the discrepancies are too big for us, maybe we would require to be there 2 weeks, then we're becoming consultants, because the consultant has been paid to do that job. So the ministry cannot start doing such jobs. So we reject the report so that it can be done and everything that has been missing be included in that report.
The starting point is the environmental impact process. So before the mine could start, there is the environmental impact process which is done, which is a proactive approach to solve the environmental issues. So before they occur, they have to be solved in that environmental impact process. So again, when the decision letter is issued, after the environmental impact assessment, we issue licenses for effluent, emissions, hazardous waste. So those licenses come with conditions. Yeah. So from time to time, twice a year, we do conduct compliance monitoring to see how they are complying. Yeah, there are specific conditions, the limits which they are not supposed to exceed. So compliance monitoring are conducted. And then we also do audits once in a while on those problematic facilities. Environmental audits are conducted.
There is lack of coordination between the law and the policy. So if the law prescribes that the institution, the mining firm, they need to make payment in total, and they decided to pay half. And when the auditors come, and then they find that the total amount was not paid. So when it comes to compliance, those mining firms, they haven't complied to the law. So I think what we should do is to harmonize the law and the policy, so that the ministry should be given the discretion to give some exemption. So even the contribution in terms of the environmental liabilities as well, it shouldn't just focus on the mine. We should also include the government to take also the obligation, because there are capital investment and projects which are also an environmental liability.
Very interesting study, I think, to start and spark a conversation around this, which can be quite technical. I think issues of bonds, cash contributions, etc., etc. But also, I think very interesting guidance and feedback from representative from the Mine Safety Department, which has shed some more light. So my contribution and suggestion for the study is based on the different processes, depending on the mining right or license. Large-scale mining, large-scale exploration, ASM, small-scale. My proposal is that in the recommendations, or firstly in the study or your analysis, you are able to shed more light in terms of what are the requirements for different license holders, so that we get the process correctly, and also the limitations. I think he brought up a very good point. The 2 years for ASM might not be realistic for someone to do an environmental audit and then contribute the fund, because by that time their license will probably be done, they'll have to renew, etc., etc.
I'd like to believe it's a requirement that every mining company submits a quarterly report to the Geological Survey Department. Did we go to the Geological Survey Department? Did we see the quarterly operations report? Did we see that the audit was not attached? I think those kinds of details would be very important in strengthening our case on the EPF and how to make it better.
So the harmonization component is, if we are saying that mining will be the bigger driver of the economy in terms of inflows, to what extent are we putting measures that will ensure that such investments don't disadvantage us in the long term? Are we being thorough? So are the ministries talking to one another? And to what extent? I think we need to scale up that level, because ours is not even an issue of luck. We do have the laws. We do have even some skeleton structure. It's how do we effectively ensure that these are working for us and they're talking to one another. It would be good to get ourselves to that level.
There's also one thing which I noticed as I was going through the policy brief. I think one sentence which caught my attention was Contributions depend on the capacity of the developer to rehabilitate areas as determined by the director. Again, the following questions as well, it's also dependent on the environmental audits of the mining firms that are enforced by the director. Don't you think this is a conduit now in terms of corruption issues, you know? Because already we know in terms of, we are just simple man, the director to determine what is based on what ground.
For us, I think there's an opportunity for us to create greater partnerships and great friendship. With that said, like Freeman said, I'll officially close this meeting, but also invite you to a group photo.